A tropical low is rapidly developing in the Coral Sea. Multiple severe weather warnings are current across northern Australia, heavy rainfall, damaging winds and potential flooding. That is what we are looking at over the coming days. I've examined the latest data from the Bureau of Meteorology, analysed the models and tracked this system's development over the past 48 hours. This is a significant weather event for Queensland and the Northern Territory, and it's worth understanding exactly what is coming. Right now, conditions across northern Australia are building towards something substantial. From far north Queensland right across to the top end, you're already feeling the humidity. Darwin hit 35 degrees this arvo with that thick, sticky air that makes everything uncomfortable. Cairns has been sitting around 31 with 80% humidity. That is the moisture loading up ahead of this system. Down in Brisbane, it's been humid as well. Not quite as oppressive as up north, but you can feel the tropical influence creeping south. Many areas along the coast are waiting for rain. The dams need it, gardens need it. But when this rain arrives, it won't be the gentle soaking rain you are hoping for. Compare that to what S happening further south. Melbourne S been mild, sitting around 22 degrees with clear skies. Adelaide S had perfect autumn weather. Even Sydney S been pleasant, mid-20s during the day. But that divide between the tropical north and the temperate south is about to become very clear over the next week. The tropical low that S forming is currently positioned northeast of Cairns over the Coral Sea. As of 6 p.m. Eastern, the system was showing a central pressure of 1,006 hectopascals. That S relatively weak at the moment, but the trend is what matters. Over the past 12 hours, the pressure has dropped 4 hectopascals. That rate of intensification tells us this system is organising rapidly. The sea surface temperatures in the Coral Sea are sitting between 28 and 29 degrees Celsius. That is more than warm enough to support tropical development. Wind shear across the region is low, around 10 to 15 knots. When you combine warm water with low shear, you create ideal conditions for tropical systems to strengthen. And that S, exactly what we're seeing. 3 different models are showing this development, and there is reasonable agreement on the broad pattern. The access model from the Bureau has been consistent for the past 3 runs, showing the low intensifying and tracking southwest towards the North Queensland coast. The GFS and the European model are broadly aligned with that scenario, though there is some divergence on the exact timing and intensity. The access model suggests the low reaches peak intensity late Thursday, with central pressure dropping to around 995 hectopascals. That would make it a moderately strong tropical low, just below tropical cyclone strength. The European model is slightly more aggressive, showing potential for further deepening. The GFS is the most conservative, keeping it as a weak to moderate low throughout its life cycle. What's important to understand is the uncertainty range here. We're talking about a system that could track anywhere within a 200-kilometre corridor. The difference between a direct coastal crossing at Cairns versus a crossing further north near Cape York is substantial in terms of local impacts. Similarly, the intensity could vary by 10 to 15 hectopascals, which translates to significantly different wind speeds and rainfall totals. The current forecast track from the Bureau shows the low moving southwest towards the coast between Thursday and Friday. If it maintains that trajectory, the most likely crossing point is somewhere between Cooktown and Cairns. That would put far north Queensland directly in the firing line. But there's a secondary scenario worth discussing. If a ridge of high pressure builds more quickly across the Tasman Sea, it could block the low S southward movement. In that case, the system would track more westward, potentially crossing the coast further north around Cape York or even into the Gulf of Carpentaria. That would shift the heaviest impacts away from the more populated areas of far north Queensland and into more remote regions. The model spread on Friday morning shows this uncertainty clearly. The ensemble members from the European model show crossing points ranging from Lockhart River in the north to Innisfail in the south. That is a spread of about 300 kilometres. Until we see how the atmosphere evolves over the next 36 hours, we want to know which scenario plays out. Let's talk about the rainfall. This is where the impacts become serious regardless of the exact track. Tropical lows are moisture machines. They pull enormous amounts of water vapour from the ocean and dump it over land. The current forecast from the Bureau shows rainfall totals of 150 to 300 millimetres across the warning area. Some localised areas could see significantly more, potentially exceeding 400 millimetres in 24 hours. To put that in perspective, Cairns averages around 200 millimetres for the entire month of January. This system could deliver that in a single day. When you get that much rain in a short period, flash flooding becomes a major concern. Rivers rise rapidly, low-lying areas go underwater, roads become impassable. Far north Queensland has copped heavy rain before. Many of you remember Cyclone Larry in 2006, Category 5 system that crossed near Innisfail, devastating wind damage. But the rainfall from Larry was around 200 to 300 millimetres in the immediate impact zone. This system could match that over a broader area. The difference between a tropical cyclone and a tropical low often comes down to wind speed. Cyclones have sustained winds above 63 kilometres per hour at the centre. This system is forecast to stay just below that threshold, with peak winds around 50 to 60 kilometres per hour. That air's still damaging for some structures, particularly older buildings, sheds and temporary structures. But it's not the catastrophic wind damage you see from a severe cyclone. The coastal areas will also deal with storm surge. The low will push water towards the coast, raising sea levels by potentially 0.5 metre to 1 metre above the normal high tide. Combined with large waves and heavy rainfall, that creates significant flood risk for low-lying coastal communities. If you are in areas like Port Douglas, Cairns or Innisfail, take storm surge seriously. Don't park vehicles near the waterfront, secure boats properly, move valuables to higher ground. If you are in flood-prone areas, the timing is critical for preparation. The system is expected to be closest to the coast Thursday night into Friday. That gives you today and tomorrow to prepare. By Wednesday evening, conditions will already be deteriorating across far north Queensland. Winds will pick up, rain will become more widespread and seas will become rough. If you are in the warning area, now is the time to secure loose items around your property. Outdoor furniture, trampolines, building materials, anything that can become a projectile in strong winds needs to be tied down or brought inside. Check your roof for loose tiles or iron. Clean out gutters and downpipes so they can handle heavy rain. Make sure you've got torches, batteries and a battery-powered radio in case the power goes out. Stock up on essentials, but don't panic buy. You need enough food and water for 3 to 4 days in case roads are cut by flooding. Tinned food, long life milk, bread, basics. Fill your vehicle with fuel while you can. If roads flood, you want to be going anywhere, but having a full tank gives you options if you need to run air conditioning or charge devices. For those with livestock or animals, make sure they have access to high ground and shelter. Heavy rain can flood paddocks quickly. Cattle can get stranded. Horses can panic. If you've got animals, have a plan for them before the rain arrives. The Bureau has issued severe weather warnings for heavy rainfall across far north Queensland from Cape Flattery down to Cardwell. That is a stretch of coast covering Cooktown, Port Douglas, Cairns, Innisfail and Tully. All of these areas are in the potential impact zone. Flood watches are also current for catchments across the region, including the Daintree, Barron, Mulgrave, Russell, Johnstone and Tully rivers. If you reef further south in Townsville or Mackay, you are not in the direct impact zone for this system, but you'll still see increased rainfall and winds as outer bands move through. Rainfall totals for these areas are forecast around 30 to 60 millimetres, which is manageable but still enough to cause localised flooding if it falls heavily in a short period. Inland areas of North Queensland will also be affected. The low is forecast to weaken as it moves inland, but it will maintain its moisture. Places like Mareeba, Atherton and the Tablelands could see 100 to 200 millimetres of rain. That's beneficial for water storages and agriculture, but it also means potential for landslips and road flooding in steep terrain. Now let's talk about what happens after the coastal crossing. Once the low moves inland, it will weaken due to loss of the warm ocean energy source. The pressure will start rising, winds will decrease, and the system will gradually lose organisation. However, the moisture doesn't just disappear. That tropical moisture will spread across inland Queensland and potentially into the Northern Territory. By the weekend, the remnants of this low will be interacting with other weather features. There is a surface trough extending across inland Australia, and the tropical moisture could enhance rainfall along that trough. That means areas like Mount Isa, the Gulf Country, and potentially even the Channel Country in Western Queensland could see widespread rain. For the Northern Territory, the monsoon trough is active across the top end. The moisture from this Coral Sea low could feed into that monsoonal pattern, increasing rainfall across the Darwin region and the Arnhem Land coast. Darwin's already seen 108 millimetres on the 18th of January, the wettest day of the year so far. Total rainfall for the year in Darwin is sitting at 420 millimetres in just 19 days. That S above the long-term average, but typical for an active wet season. The monsoon trough is the band of low pressure that sits across northern Australia during summer. It marks the convergence zone where trade winds from the southeast meet winds from the northwest. When the monsoon trough is active, you get thunderstorms, heavy rainfall, and tropical low development. This system we retracking is a product of that monsoon activity. For those asking about the potential for this to develop into a named tropical cyclone, it's possible but not certain. The system would need to intensify further, with winds reaching at least 63 kilometres per hour sustained. If that happens before the coastal crossing, it would be named. The next name on the Australian region list is Alfred, so if this system reaches cyclone intensity, it becomes Tropical Cyclone Alfred. Comparing this to past events gives us some perspective. In 2011, Tropical Cyclone Yassi crossed the North Queensland coast near Mission Beach as a Category 5 system. That was one of the most powerful cyclones to hit Queensland in recorded history. Wind gusts exceeded 285 kilometres per hour. The destruction was catastrophic. This current system is not in the same league as Yassi, not even close. However, that doesn't mean it's not serious. Even weaker systems can cause significant damage through flooding rather than wind. In 2019, a tropical low brought extreme rainfall to Townsville. Over a week, some areas received over 1,000 millimetres of rain. The Ross River Dam overflowed. Thousands of homes were flooded. It was a disaster caused not by a cyclone, but by a slow-moving low that sat over the region and dumped extraordinary amounts of rain. The key difference is speed of movement. Fast-moving systems cause less rainfall in any one location but affect a broader area. Slow-moving systems concentrate the rainfall, leading to localised extreme totals. The current forecast shows this low moving at a moderate pace, around 15 to 20 kilometres per hour. That S fast enough to spread the rain across a reasonable area, but slow enough that totals will be significant. One question I've seen raised is whether we might see multiple tropical systems this season. It's a fair question. We're in the peak of the tropical cyclone season, which runs from November through April. January and February are typically the most active months. The conditions across the Coral Sea and the wider tropical Pacific are conducive to development this year. The Bureau's seasonal outlook indicated a near average to slightly above average number of tropical cyclones for the Australian region this season. We typically see about 11 systems in an average year, with 4 of those reaching severe cyclone intensity. So far this season, we've had moderate activity. This current low would be another system to add to the count, whether it reaches cyclone intensity or not. For Victoria and the southern states, this tropical activity up north doesn't directly affect you, but it's worth watching. Moisture from tropical systems can sometimes interact with cold fronts moving across the south, leading to enhanced rainfall. That's particularly true if the remnants of tropical lows get caught up in the westerly wind flow and transported south. It is not happening with this particular system, but it's a pattern we see occasionally. Looking at the extended forecast beyond this immediate system, the monsoon trough is likely to remain active across northern Australia for at least the next 2 weeks. That means continued risk of thunderstorms, heavy rainfall, and potential for further tropical low development. If you are in northern Queensland or the top end, this isn't a one-off event. It is part of a broader active wet season pattern. For those in the warning areas, the key message is to take this seriously without panicking. This is a significant weather event that will bring heavy rain, strong winds, and flood risk. But it's not unprecedented. UV dealt with tropical weather before. The key is preparation and sensible decision making. If you're retold to evacuate, evacuate. Don't wait until the roads are flooded. If you're in a low-lying area prone to flooding, have a plan for where you'll go if water rises. If you're in a caravan or temporary structure, relocate to solid shelter before Wednesday evening. Don't take risks. Once the system arrives, stay indoors. Don't drive through floodwater. The old saying holds true. If it's flooded, forget it. Most flood deaths happen when people try to drive through water. It only takes 60 centimetres of fast-flowing water to wash a car away. You can judge the depth or the current from inside a vehicle. Don't risk it. Keep an eye on updates from the Bureau of Meteorology. Warnings will be updated regularly as the system develops. Local councils and emergency services will provide specific guidance for your area. Follow their advice. Check on neighbours, particularly elderly people or those who might need help preparing. After the system passes, the danger doesn't end immediately. Roads may remain cut for days due to flooding. Rivers can take time to recede. There may be damage to power lines, water supplies and communications. Be patient. Emergency services will be working as quickly as possible, but they will prioritise life-threatening situations first. For the rest of Australia watching this develop, it is a reminder of the weather extremes this country experiences. While the south deals with cool changes and mild autumn conditions, the north is managing tropical systems and monsoonal rain. That contrast is part of living on a continent that spans from the tropics to the temperate zone. The models will continue to refine the forecast over the next 24 to 36 hours. By tomorrow evening, we'll have much better clarity on the exact track, intensity and timing. I'll be monitoring the situation closely and will provide updates as the picture becomes clearer. In summary, tropical low developing over the Coral Sea, tracking towards the North Queensland coast. Expected crossing Thursday night into Friday, somewhere between Cooktown and Cairns. Heavy rainfall, 150 to 300 millimetres, some areas more. Damaging winds 50 to 60 kilometres per hour. Storm surge along the coast. Flood risk for rivers and low-lying areas. Prepare today and tomorrow. Conditions deteriorate Wednesday evening. This is a serious event requiring preparation but not panic. Check the Bureau of Meteorology website for the latest warnings. Follow local emergency services on social media for specific advice. Have your emergency kit ready. Look after your mates and neighbours. And remember, when it comes to floodwater, if it's flooded, forget